what was going on at this media lunch. Fabricio Verdum taking exception to something that seemed innocuous to me that Tony Ferguson did to try to pipe Verdum down. Ferguson was answering a question that he was prompted to answer, and at least to my eyes, Verdum interjected and just sort of blew a gasket, started attacking Ferguson verbally. Clearly, there's a backdrop here with Verdum's manager, Ali Abdelaziz, or you'd like to think so. But I thought Verdum sort of was in the wrong here and made this something that didn't need to be.
Yeah, again, obviously, Tony Ferguson has gone back and forth with Khabib Nurmagomedov and Ali Abdelaziz, Khabib's manager, Verdum's manager. So I think there was something, in my eyes, it seemed like Verdum was waiting for something to jump on Tony Ferguson about.
Yep, I agree.
You know what I mean? So I think Fabricio, he's a crazy guy, man. He's a crazy guy. We've heard of him going off on people before, and
Reebok.
And it's just it's a shame that it happens. Like, dude, you're a heavyweight. He's a good guy. He's one of the funniest guys you ever meet. He's a nice guy. So who knows what kind of spur this? Maybe he was just having a bad day. Maybe he was trying to get back at him because of his manager. Who knows? But he's a heavyweight. You're a heavyweight, man. You're picking on a 155-pounder. Like, come on.
Terrible.
There's no fight that's going to happen there. It's unnecessary. He's gone back and forth with Luke Rockhold as well, 185-pounder. Like, stop. It's silly.
Yeah. No, I think you summed it up well. And I think actually when Verdum went after Reebok, he lost his commentary gig as one of the UFC's Spanish or Portuguese-speaking commentators. So, yeah, a little bit of an ugly situation there. And I thought Ferguson, after the fact, it looked like he was a little bit affected by it, and hard to blame him, right? All of a sudden you have a heavyweight seemingly coming at you a little bit. Yeah. One thing about Tony Ferguson, though, in the lead up to this fight and the Nurmagomedov stuff is everything that he has said publicly has proven to be true, right? When he has suggested that there were some things that weren't true coming out of the other camp when it came to that Nurmagomedov fight and dates and stuff like that. Ferguson's been a man of his word. And as far as a competitor inside the octagon, this guy is about as watchable as it gets. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. When we talk about Sakuraba fighting for 60 straight minutes, I mean, this is the guy, Kenny. And I think with these two guys, Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson, if you're giving them, a 9 in this category, a 10 for striking, whatever, self-belief, both guys off the charts with a 10. I think you can nitpick and find certain advantages in certain spots, certainly high-level experience, big fight experience for Tony Ferguson, but both guys have headlined for the UFC. Both believe they're the far better fighter, and I can't wait. Do you know who you're picking right now? Do you know?
I do.
Right?
I do. And listen, Ferguson is not a perfect fighter. He makes mistakes out there. There's certain things that fundamentally he doesn't do so well. But here's the problem. He believes it doesn't matter how he's going to get it done, but he's going to get it done. And this is a guy that has proved time and time again, it doesn't matter what you throw at him, he's going to find an answer. He's going to find a way to respond, whether it's with a technique or with his heart. He's going to find a way to push through. And that's what makes him such a difficult fighter to deal with in this 155-pound division, a division that is filled with killers, filled with high-level fighters. But Ferguson has rose to the top because of his combination of finishing skill and his heart and determination. This guy is a savage.
And so is Kevin Lee, and obviously Lee has a very opportunistic submission game. And we've said repeatedly, or at least I have, you got to separate Ferguson from consciousness or choke him unconscious. It doesn't strike me as a guy who's going to tap out, and as a guy who's never been knocked out in his mixed martial arts career that is coming up on 27 pro fights for Tony Ferguson. But it is what amounts to a year layoff, 11 months for Tony Ferguson. But not a guy you worry too much about when it comes to ring rust. I know a lot of fighters like Dominic Cruz don't even believe in it, Kenny. But I mean, how much in terms of improvements can Ferguson make in an 11-month period? I mean, how much can you reinvent yourself when you have that much time without a fight? Granted, he trained for one 25-minute fight, but it's a lot of time off.
Well, I tell you what, it is. It is a long time off. For me, for guys like me, I like to be as familiar with the octagon as possible. I did not like having long layoffs. I feel like it did affect me a little bit. I like smelling the octagon. I like everything that happens on fight week. I like that familiar feeling. With a guy like Ferguson, with as much experience as he has, I don't think is as much of an issue for him. And in regards to him, how much better can he get? I think he can get a lot better. Last time I talked to Tony Ferguson, he was talking to me about, how he's been working on Taekwondo and Wing Chun and working on his wrestling and different stuff for his jiu-jitsu. I mean, this guy is always investigating things in the martial arts work. He's an unusual guy, but I think that's what makes him special, is that he's always looking for something new, some kind of edge, some kind of thing that maybe people haven't seen before. And I think in combat, anytime you're able to do that, anytime you're able to throw something at someone that they haven't seen before, they're typically not going to respond well to that. So I think that's what Tony Ferguson tries to do during his fights. That's where he surprises people. And again, I think this is going to be a Tony Ferguson that has improved a great deal.
He's got a great circle around him of people that he really trusts, Eddie Bravo and the rest. And his son, I think, is something, Armand, that has buoyed him a little bit as well. So we'll see if Ferguson or Kevin Lee, we'll see which guy sort of takes that next step into UFC superstardom, because I do think one of those guys could be destined for it. A lot of people have planted their flag on Kevin Lee and believe that he's the guy that can really take the torch and build a fight potentially with Conor McGregor. There's no doubt that both of these guys have some ability with a microphone on them. I think both guys could use a little bit more polish, but that's something that they can get going forward. But I just see huge upside on both of these guys, and certainly this main event for the UFC's interim lightweight title coming up this Saturday night. Of course, you can see it on pay-per-view. Co-headliner, Kenny, was to happen last month in Edmonton. Demetrious Johnson trying to become the UFC's most decorated champion of all time. 10 successful title defenses in the can. Nobody has had 11. He will share the octagon with Ray Borg, another guy who's very young, I think 24 years old right now. Another guy who's very hard to put away. I don't believe he's ever been finished in mixed martial arts, so DJ will try to be the first man to do that. Obviously, the odds are pronounced, Kenny. I mean, it's minus 1,200, plus 750 at last check on Ray Borg. Do you think this is just a throwaway, quick fight, quick finish for DJ? Or how competitive is this matchup in your eyes?
Well, Demetrious Johnson is definitely good enough to get a fast finish over anybody in that division. I think it's going to be an exciting fight while it lasts. I think that Ray Borg has an interesting style. Tim Elliott, a guy who isn't the most skillful guy in the world, but he does go at you, and he does make your life kind of miserable. There's many scrambles that he throws at you, and he forces you to get into those scrambles, and he can get position on you. And I think Ray Borg has a very similar style. Demetrious also is a momentum-type fighter like a lot of guys out there. He gets in his groove, and then he's pretty much unstoppable. But if you can get him out of that groove, if you can really not allow him to get his rhythm and throw a lot of crap at him like Ray Borg can, I think it could be an interesting fight. I also think that Ray Borg is a cleaner finisher when it comes to his submission game than Tim Elliott is. So yeah. I think that's what makes it interesting, is that Demetrious Johnson can't afford to make those same mistakes that he made against Tim Elliott. He can't give up his back. He can't give up a mount position. Ray Borg just might finish him. He's very good from that back position. He knows how to set up submissions with his strikes. He knows how to set up takedowns with his strikes. Can he take him down repeatedly? I don't know, but I think his best bet is to go at Demetrious Johnson early in the fight. Don't let him get in that rhythm. Just take the fight right to him. Just make it a crazy brawl. You don't want to make it a technical fight against Demetrious Johnson. He will pick you apart. He's got to make it a brawl. He's got to make it a wild fight, where maybe Demetrious Johnson isn't as comfortable as he is, and when he's kind of dictating and leading the dance.
DJ continues to prioritize the finish here during this title reign. 6 finishes in the 10 defenses that we mentioned thus far, and he'll be looking for another one against Ray Borg. Now, I know you have a lot of respect for the coaches down there in Albuquerque, New Mexico, certainly Mike Winklejohn and Brandon Gibson, who you've heard from repeatedly on this show, and a few quotes from them on Ray Borg. Wink really seems to think like they've got a kid who can beat Demetrious Johnson. Brandon Gibson says, we feel like we have the skill, the technique, and the athlete to beat Demetrious Johnson. I don't necessarily think that's just coach speak. I do feel like on Ray Borg's best night, Kenny, he can provide a real challenge for Demetrious Johnson. And it's almost like until we see something, you can't believe it. But, I mean, you've called Ray Borg fights. He's a little pain in the ass. He made his UFC debut, Kenny, 20 years old, right? We've watched this guy grow up inside the octagon. He's never been submitted, never been knocked out. I'm very interesting to see what Ray Borg can do with this chance.
Yes.
Now, of course, he's got to get through the fight before the fight on Friday and during fight week with the weight cut and everything else. But maybe I have higher hopes than the odds makers do for what Ray Borg can do with this chance.
But listen, I got to say that for Ray Borg, he has the skills to do it. The skills are not the issue for someone like Ray Borg. It's the experience. So I really do feel skill-wise, he can offer a lot of problems. He can present a lot of problems for Demetrius Johnson. Also speed-wise, he's not sure he's as fast as Demetrius Johnson, but